Welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is the President of the Kurdish region of Iraq, Mr. Barzani, who is visiting France at the moment. Hello.
Hello.
You have had discussions with the President of France and the Minister of Defense, particularly about the battle for the reconquest of Mosul. What have you asked the French for?
As you are aware, this is an issue of shared concern, one that is of interest to France, obviously, and to all of the coalition forces. We talked about how to strengthen our cooperation and how to prepare the ground with a view to the recovery of Mosul. An agreement was reached.
An agreement on what? What role is France playing? Providing more weapons? What kind of weapons?
The role of France within the coalition is of the greatest importance. The air resources available to France are major. A long-range artillery battery has been established in the region. With the Peshmerga and the Iraqi army with fire support for both sides. As you know, there are other groups, expert groups, advisors on behalf of France.
Are we going to increase the number of French special forces?
We did not discuss that. If need be, then France will, I'm sure, agree to increase the forces.
Are the plans for the reconquest of Mosul ready?
Militarily, the planning process is ready. As you know, the recovery of Mosul is not just a military issue. The post-liberation situation is also very important.
Has there been any coordination with Baghdad?
Yes, indeed. There have been meetings between the two sides, between the Peshmerga leadership and those of the Iraqi army. And in the course of those meetings, the role of each group was stipulated.
What difficulties will exist after the reconquest?
The question will be how to manage, how to administer Mosul and Nineveh post-liberation. As you know, this province is a mosaic of religions and ethnic groups, and real tragedy has occurred there, in particular the Christians and the Yazidis. We need a guarantee that such tragedy cannot happen again. And so we must, with the inhabitants of the province, ensure that that cannot happen again.
What are you planning in terms of administration of the region?
There are several proposals on the table. It is not yet the time to discuss them. The committee involved is going to have to meet and bring together all of the parties involved for a decision to be made.
When will the battle begin?
I cannot give you an exact starting date.
Who will be participating in this battle? The Iraqi army, the Popular Mobilization Forces, besides the Kurdish forces?
Those taking part in the combat are the Iraqi and Peshmerga forces. Regarding the PMF and the national groups, this is going to require an agreement within the population of the province. No, there has to be an agreement. There has to be a consensus reached regarding the role of each of the parties involved.
Is it possible to envisage this reconquest before the end of the year with the American administration?
It cannot be ruled out, but we are going to have to make ready for the post-liberation period.
As an autonomous region, what do you expect for the following period regarding Kirkuk?
I can tell you today that the Kurdish territories have been entirely freed of ISIL. The Iraqi constitution stipulates that the territories concerned are now referred to as disputed territories, including Kirkuk. These are the territories lying outside the administration of Kurdistan, And we have reached agreement with the Iraqis on a process of normalization leading up to a referendum. A referendum is to be held, and we shall respect the wishes of the people.
What about the referendum on the fate of the region, independence? When will it take place?
Above all, this subject must be discussed with Baghdad. Once we reach an agreement with Baghdad, then we shall organize the referendum.
Are there any deadlines for you?
The timeline cannot be indefinite. Obviously, there is a horizon.
Is it a question of months or years?
Neither one nor the other.
Several months, therefore. You recently visited Ankara, you met the Turkish President Erdogan, and currently Turkey is fighting against Kurdish forces in Syria. How do you reconcile those two positions? The President of Iraqi Kurdistan meets the Turks who are fighting the Kurds in Syria.
Let's be frank. To us, we simply cannot condone an attack on Kurds by another country. And at the same time, we cannot accept the idea that a group of Kurds should deliberately take arms to defend its rights. Regarding Syria, unfortunately, there has been a misunderstanding. This is a group which monopolized the situation in Syria.
You're referring to a Kurdish group, the Democratic Union Party.
That party has pushed out the other parties. It's edged them out, and it has now become a fully integrated part of the PKK. They should not have done that. That has angered the Turks. They should not have done it. It was a mistake. They should have been independent of PKK and of us.
Would you agree for a declaration of independence, a secession, autonomy, like in Iraq?
As soon as a consensus is reached amongst Kurds in Syria, we will back that consensus.
In 2013, there was an agreement in Erbil between the different Kurdish parties, but there was no follow-up.
Precisely. It was PYD which didn't play the game, didn't respect the Erbil Accords.
Is there any hope for you to play a role?
We shall do everything in our power to uphold the Erbil agreements and the Dahuk agreements. If all the parties involved respect those agreements, then we will back them.
And what if they decide to go further regarding autonomy or independence? Will you support those claims?
On the subject of independence, I believe that the time has not yet come.
Not necessarily independence. What about federalism, for example?
Once again, what the Syrian Kurds decide, we will live with. As soon as there is a consensus, we will support it.
Do you think they should withdraw to the east of the Euphrates, as the Turks require?
That's their business. It's a domestic Syrian Kurdish issue. But obviously, it's of interest to other forces.
In Turkey, you mentioned changes in the region in future. Are you going to change the frontiers, the maps?
We are already dealing with changes in boundaries. Boundaries are changing every day.
Can we imagine new frontiers?
The country is already partitioned as we speak.
In Iraq, it's already settled. What about the rest of Iraq and Syria?
The country, once again, is already partitioned. Is Syria unified? No. And it's not going to be unified as it was in the past.
It will no longer be united.
So, we are going to have to think up other forms of government or regimes.
What forms?
I don't know, but I know we have to come up with something.
Okay, as regards the independence of Iraqi Kurdistan, do you feel that there is support for this idea of independence or of a referendum? You are talking to the Europeans and the Americans, you're in France?
Naturally, we discuss this issue with all of our partners in Europe and in the US. I have never in the course of these talks encountered any form of refusal of this proposal. But obviously there are different points of view. There are those who think that the time has not yet come. There are others who consider that there are already so many problems in the region that we don't need new problems. We see it as a solution, and one that is going to define our future in the Kurdish region. We have not been good partners. Let us at least try and be good neighbors.
With the central government?
With the central government. Once again, no one is refusing. Some are expressing their support publicly, others consider that we should not add new problems to existing problems.
Even in the region, for example in Iran, which you could visit?
When I go to Iran, I shall put the subject on the table with the Iranians.
And what about Turkey? Are they supporting independence?
Turkey is neither supporting nor refusing the proposal.
A last question, Mr. Barzani. When will the elections be held for the presidency of the region of Kurdistan? We know there are some concerns about this for 2 years now.
When the decision is made to hold the elections, then I shall go with that proposal.
Are you going to call for presidential elections?
I'm ready to call elections.
When?
Could be in a month's time. But the political parties involved have to agree.
So it depends on the agreement between the different Kurdish political parties, not on your position.
No, I have no position as regards the elections. But the elections must be the result of the wish of the voters, referendum or parliament.
Is it a prerequisite for organizing the elections?
It's not up to this or that political party to decide on behalf of the voters whether the president should be elected directly or by parliament.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barzani, for this interview. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more news.